I have a story that I had told my friends and family, but most of my friends doesn't believe my story. And honestly, I wouldn't have believed myself if I was alone that day. But I wasn't alone when this particular event happened. My name is Jessica. This happened in the late fall of 2022, and I actually had my friend Sandra with me, and this took place in on the outskirts of our hometown in Indiana. You see, me and Sandra, we love doing driving around in the outskirts, so just doing hikings together. But this day, it had been a little bit murky day when, so we decided it was probably not a good day for do some hikes. So we just decided to drive around in the woods outside of our hometown. Our hometown isn't that small town. This is a very much decent sized city. I would say probably population of 18 to 19,000 people. But anyways, this happened in the early afternoon. I would say 2 p.m. like that. We were just talking, listening to radio, and we were just talking about our what we had done during the summer, what we are looking forward to the next year, and even about even Thanksgiving plans, Christmas plans, all that. I know it's a little bit away from that, but this was around September, I believe, mid-September. I don't remember the precise date, but it was around mid-September. But when we were just halfway through our ride home, Sandra told me to stop, and I asked why. Just she told me to stop, and so I did. And then after I stopped the car, I asked her, "What's the matter? Do you need to use the restroom or something?" She shook her head and she pointed right in front of her in the windshield. I didn't know what she was pointing at, but then suddenly this large creature walked on all fours to the road, and to me it looked like a wolf. But I know this wolves are not typically that big. Like it was like a giant wolf. I never heard of any big wolf like that. But suddenly, as this wolf creature looked at us, it suddenly stood up on its hind legs and just looked at us. I was terrified. And I looked at Sandra and she was horrified. And this being made a sort of just lifted his head and made a howl and ran off across the road on his hind leg, just across the road. I had no idea what to do. We were both sitting there petrified of fear. But then Sandra snapped out of it and said, "Drive, drive, drive!" And I just snapped out of myself and I just drove fast. I drove as fast as I could. And for the first moment after we just left that area, we were silent. Not even the radio was on. And I asked Sandra, "Whoa, what was that?" But she didn't know. In fact, she was silent. I asked her again, more firmly, "Sandra, what the heck was that?" But she had no answer. She said, I I don't think that was a wolf. Oh, no kidding. A wolf don't just stand up on his hind leg and run off like that. And I should know that because I had literally been growing up. In my childhood, I used to live near a lot of forests and I did a lot of animals. Foxes, coyotes, you name it. And on occasionally a wolf or but but this was not a typical wolf. But then it hit me. Wait, do you think that could be a dogman? She looked at me puzzled and asked, "Dogman? I'm surprised that you hadn't even heard of the term of a creature." She shook her head no. Then I explained that the dogman is a typical cryptid creature which is a like a werewolf creature. And she asked me, how would I know about those? I told her I had heard some stories about some people claim to seen a dogman creature in Wisconsin, which known as the Beast of Bray Road, and even the Michigan Dogman. So she asked me, is it possible those dogmen could have walked all the way to our state? I shook her my head and said, I doubt it. This might be a one of different other kind. Then you probably ask, do you think could be more of those here, around here? I wasn't really sure about the answer, but I said truly, I said, it's possible, but I don't. I mean, I really don't know about it. So after that, we were just quiet about it. And after I dropped her off at home, I went home. I met my older brother, who was around only 2 years older than me. I asked him about it, and he is actually a strong believer in a cryptid world of like Bigfoot, Yeti, Dogman, Chupacabra, and you name it. In fact, he was the one who induced me to this kind of creatures in the first place. And when I told him about it, he asked me the description, and I gave it the best I could remember. He was tall, I believe it's around 7 or 7.5 feet tall, black fur, and it looks as if it had white or yellowish eyes, and it made us its howl and just ran off on his hind legs. And then he said, that's so clearly a dog man. After that, I told my parents. They were not hesitant to believe me because they told me that they had heard stories of their own grandparents when they were young of such strange werewolf creature roaming around in the Indiana state, but they had never even heard or even seen them themselves. But they know there is there. But just if they would have encountered it, they have been told to stay away from it. And even after that, even when I told a few friends of mine about this, they believe me not a single word of it. Even with Sandra confirmed it happened, but they still didn't believe me or her. So most of our friends didn't believe, but a few of our friends that we had known for years did believe us. In fact, they had also heard the stories about this dog man, but never seen it themselves. At first, like I said, if I was alone, I would have not known exactly if I was born to believe. I mean, it could have just simply been a man in a suit, or some sort of costume. But that would have been very strange, because that particular road wasn't much traffic on during that time of the day. So, if there was a man in a suit, or a costume or something like that, he would have been waiting in the forest, in the woods, all day long, for just even get the thrill to scare someone. But I doubt there was even a someone in a costume. I do believe it was a dog man. Me and Sandra had often talked about it since last year, and you may wonder if we had ever seen it again since last year. Then no. And at least as far as I know, I hadn't even really seen it yet. But it is not unlikely I would see it again. My brother told me that it's possible that we might see it again and again sometimes in the future. But it's difficult to say when. But I'm really glad that this dog man just looked at us, made it howl, and just took off. It's hard to say what else would he have done. I mean, who knows how strong those dogmans are? They probably could have ripped a car door off from the car entirely and could have dragged me or Sandra out of the woods, and we would never have been seen again. For that, I'm glad the dogman somehow just was not interested in neither of us, and we were able to leave. So for that, it's my and Sandra's terrifying story about our encounter with a dogman. Thank you for listening. My name is Hannah. I have a story to tell all of you. It is something I really wouldn't have believed myself if I was alone that day, but I wasn't alone. I have my boyfriend, my best friend, and her boyfriend in the car, and this happened in the summer of 2016. All of us live 10 miles outside of Houston, Texas. This was something that we were quite shook up on this. I should mention that I lived on a ranch which has been in my family for generations, so I would have been aware of certain animals like coyotes, foxes, and other big animals. But this was something I at first couldn't even explain. But it's very hard to believe. But I tell you, it happened. So me, my best friend Sophie, my boyfriend James, and her boyfriend Ryan, all of us at the same age, 21. We were just out for a ride in a car. We were just bored that day, and this was during the summer. And we didn't have any particular plans, so James and Ryan suggested that we just take my car and drive around in the area just to see what is some if we could find anything new that we could explore or find a good spot that we could just hang out. So since me and Sophie would have no other plans and we were quite bored, so we were like, why not? So we took my car and we started driving around. After a while, we had came to this woodlands, and we decided to take a dirt road that we had been on before. But after a while, we didn't know what else to do, so Ryan said that we should probably stop the car and just stretch our legs a little bit. And like, yeah, why not? But as before we were about to do it, Ryan stopped and said, wait, where is that? And he pointed, and he was actually in the back seat with Sophie, and he pointed, and all of us just looked what he was pointing towards. He was pointing farther in a direction across a little bit further up this dirt road. And it was, at first, we didn't know what it was, but we saw there was this black mass, and I was like, ah, that's a black bear. But as this creature, this animal, just walked out on the road, all of us suddenly know it's not a black bear. That was not even escaped cow or anything, because I should know. My family raised cattle, and I recognized immediately if that was a cattle or not. But this looked to be like a giant dog. Wow, that's a big dog, said Ryan. James like, Ryan, I don't think that's a dog. Then, before anyone else could say anything, this animal looked at us and it just stared. It felt like an eternity. But it was only for a few seconds, and it suddenly made a howl, and it suddenly stopped, and it stood up, and it somehow slowly walked towards us, and I don't know what to do, because I was petrified of fear. This creature, or what you call it, it's like a wolf, walking on his hind legs, walking slowly towards us. And then suddenly James snapped out of it and put his hand on the car horn and made it this strong, loud sound, and it somehow startled this wolf, or what you call it, and it stopped and just took off running on his hind legs straight in the woods and disappearing. All of us sat there in the car, petrified, and was like, what in the world was that? James was like, people, you have seen the famous Dogman. All of us just looked at James like, Dogman? Wait, you mean the Dogman? Like the one from Wisconsin? Said Ryan. Well, not the same, but it's... Yeah, but that's definitely a Dogman. Sophie was really scared and she was crying like, how did you know that was a Dogman? James then confessed that he actually had seen it before, or at least something similar to that, a few years earlier. And he knew exactly what to do because that's what his dad did when they were in the car as well. So James suggests that we just drive away from this area immediately before it could come back. And I didn't have to be asked twice. I started the car and just drove away. We were silent for a moment. As we were driving, I was like, we should call the local sheriff and tell him about this. But James calmly said, it wouldn't be worth it. What are you saying? James explained that even if we did call the local police or the sheriff about this, they would dismiss us that we just saw a big black bear. Just this misunderstood that this animal just being a simple black bear. I was like, how did they dismiss of a black bear? Black bear doesn't run his hind leg like that. We all agreed on that. But James said it's pointless. But should we tell someone about this? Asked Ryan. Well, it's not like many people would believe us. But it's up to you if you wanted to tell me. And as we arrived home back to my ranch, I was very much hesitating to telling my parents. But that evening, during dinner, I actually did that. And they actually looked at me. I first expected them to tell me I was crazy, that I saw just a black bear, but... so you've seen it too? Wait, you seen it you too, Dad? I asked, quietly. Yep, I saw it many times. Even in my childhood. Wait, you never told me about it. Well, where's the tell? No one would even believe me, except your grandfather and your uncle. They're the only ones who also believe me, because they've seen it too. So, if I were to see it again, what would I do? Just drive away, or use the car horn as your boyfriend did. That's the best option. Don't try to even interact with a dogman, because they're like werewolf. So from that day, I really hope that I won't even to encounter the dogman of Texas again. But even to this day, me and James are still together actually. But from time to time when we meet up with Sophie and Ryan, who also is still together, when we talk about this, we went through different scenarios. Well, what if we actually had stepped out of the car and we were talking and we saw it until it was too late? It is a scenario that neither me or Sophie didn't like much, but it is something we should actually have been thought about. But I'm glad that we never even get out of the car. Get out of the car. So to this day, we hadn't even seen it, even though we had driven that area at many different times, but never seen it or heard it. I'm just happy that we never saw it. For that, it's a good thing, because I did have some nightmares from that day on, but not anymore. But it was a terrifying encounter with a dogman, for sure. I'm an experienced outdoors person. I have spent almost my entire life in the woods with my family for hiking and hunting with my dad and uncle. I even trained and taught how to recognize any of the normal animal sounds they make, and even how to recognize of any footprints of certain animals. So for that, I'm confident enough to capable of to survive in the woods and recognize if I find footprints made of a bear, mountain lion, or even a smaller animal like a raccoon or something. I was really capable of to believe that. But there is one time that was I at first couldn't believe what I actually saw. If I was alone, would have believed myself if I had been see something or if I went crazy. But I actually had my girlfriend Allison with me that day. She can confirm what we saw was real and not a normal animal. Allison is now my fiance, just even that is irrelevant. But this happened when I was 18, when Allison was 19. My name is Travis, by the way. This happened in the summer of 2015 in Ohio. Even though we will not be given our precise location for our privacy. But anyways, this happened in the summer. Me and Allison was just bored and she suggested that we take my car for a drive. And since it was a nice day and I was like, yeah, I was bored. So we did. So I packed my car with some snacks and drinks that we could bring along. If we find a good spot, we could perhaps have a small picnic, which she actually liked the idea. So we took my car and left. We were driving around and we were soon in the passing through a dense woods in a on a lonely road. As we were driving, we were listening to the radio, singing to each other, just talking, have a good time. And we actually did find a spot where we can stay, and we actually had a picnic together. But the event that was I was referring to what happened a bit after this. So during this picnic, we're just talking about what we are planning for the rest of the summer and something like that. And yeah, I would just spare you for most normal chit chat what we did. It was just a normal day. After we packed back things back to the car, we decided to drive for some more before returning back home to my place. And as we were driving, there was probably 2 miles away from we had our picnic. And Allison thought maybe it was time for us to bring it back home since she had to help around at home. So I was like, all right, just had to find this road to return back home. And when we were just only a few miles away from our town, Allison said, "Wait, slow down. What is that?" So I slowed down car to maybe half the speed, almost to stopping it. And she pointed in the distance in the woods. Allison pointed and said, "Is that a black bear?" I looked and like, no, that's not a black bear. It doesn't have the same features as a bear should have. Is it? Then what is it? This animal was standing up on its hind legs. And as soon as we saw it from behind, it was a little bit hard to say, but suddenly it slowly turned and I was like speechless. "Wait, that's a wolf?" said Allison. "But wolf can't stand on its hind legs and they aren't that big, right?" she said a little bit nervously. "No, that's not a typical wolf." "Then what is it?" But before I could even answer, this wolf-like creature just suddenly made this high-pitched howl, and suddenly just took off further up in the woods that was standing. Me and Allison we were puzzled, terrified at the same time. We had no idea what we even saw. Then I just hit the gas pedal and just drove away from the location as Allison just looked through the woods, tried to see them. as she was trying to look into the woods to see more of this creature, but she didn't see it anymore. And I really didn't care. I just drive and drive. I drove all the way home to my parents' house, and as we got out of the car, my parents was in the front yard to do something. I don't remember what they did. And Allison explained to my mom after she said that she looked terrified. But my mom dismissed her that was just a typical black bear. But after I gave my description of this creature to my dad, who is an experienced hunter, he immediately dismissed that was not a black bear. He said that sounds like a description of a wolf. But the fact is what he said. Wolf can't stand on his hind leg. And typically another thing is they don't run on two legs, only four. And he said that sounded like almost if it could have been a giant wolf. But there are no giant wolf in our country. I remember from what my dad told me, it used to be a wolf that called dire wolf. That was a bit larger than typical wolf, but that one it went extinct 10,000 years ago. And that same evening, I did some research about this particular creature, and I found some articles. Something that was referring to Wisconsin's werewolf, Wisconsin's dogman, or beast of prey road. I searched more about this dogman, and I was shocked I found more stories about different supposed dogman slash werewolf scattered across the United States, and including the words of reports of seeing a dogman in Ohio. So I do believe, me and Allison, we saw at least one of Ohio's infamous dogmen. I told her that, she believed me. Even though we hadn't seen it again, which I'm gladly to also, yeah. And even though that me and Allison are now still together, it just, we, I hope that we never see this creature again, and we haven't. Thanks for listening.